What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Here, guys, Derek and Cody with you as always. And guys, just disclaimer right off the top of the video here. Please refrain from talking in the comments as if we don't know that we need to give this video a little bit more time before we can fully 100% say anything. We're just going to talk about it because it's something that a lot of people are questioning on whether or not it changes a lot of people's perspectives on Ballard and Irsay going forward. So we're just giving the people what they want. Okay. So we got to talk about this, Cody, because we've been talking about it in secret for like the last month, really, while the Colts have kind of figured out this whole process for this coaching search. And, there were people that were, up in arms saying that if the Colts made the wrong decision here, or what fans deemed to be the wrong decision at the coaching hire, then there were a lot of people that were saying these two need to get the heck out of here, or I'm going to remain not a non-Colts fan from here on out, or Jim Irsay should sell the team, because he's just too power corrupt. That's what we're hearing over the last month of the Colts taking forever to figure out who their next head coach would be, right? So after the Colts have officially hired Shane Steichen, what's your perception on Ballard and Irsay and how they handled this situation?
Yeah, it's a topic that's very, very interesting, just because we've seen the emotions just everywhere, everywhere. And it seems like they've kind of calmed down a little bit after the Steichen hire was announced a week ago from when we're recording. So on, I guess on a Sunday when it was leaked there that Steichen would become the next Colts head coach, I think some fans have kind of chilled out a little bit, but it was getting to the extremes where there was people, there was that petition, for goodness sakes, that, do not hire Jeff Saturday. Do not hire, I've never seen Colts Nation come together and just be so pretty much in the same camp where it's no, this is where we're going to put our foots down a little bit. We're going to put our feet down a little bit and be like, absolutely not. This is not something that's going to happen. And so my perception is that it has cooled off a little bit. Fans are a little bit more chill and optimistic now. Not everybody is. You'll always have the naysayers, always have the people who don't like a hire no matter heck if you hired the next, Bill Walsh, they wouldn't like it. There's just those people out there. So you can never make everybody happy, but it seems like the majority of the fan base is pretty happy with this hire overall. And I think one of the big concerns that I think not just fans had, but even the media had, whether it was local media, whether it was, national media, it was is Irsay becoming his dad? Is he becoming more of that power corrupt, power hungry type of, owner who's really becoming a Jerry Jones-esque kind of leader, right? Kind of GM, kind of GM owner. It's kind of weird. But I think for what we've seen and with the report that came out before the Steichen hire was official was that, Irsay is going to let Ballard make this decision. That's something that Irsay has been very vocal about in the past, right? About letting that process happen. Let your GM get his guy. And so when we saw him basically overstep the GM and go with a guy like Jeff Saturday, I mean, Ballard's making that decision. That's not happening, right? Bubba Ventrone's probably your coach the rest of the year. But yeah, when I see that and when Colts fans see that, it makes you question some things. Man, is this a dysfunctional organization? Is this an organization that I want to support? Right? Those kind of questions that come up and people question people's, fandom, I guess. You've seen that a lot. It's you're not a true fan no matter what happens. But I kind of look at it like this, Derek. You can be a true fan and want the best and disagree with decisions. That's what a lot of people were doing. Now, there were some people that were taking it to the extreme. For sure there were. But I think for the most part, fans were just you hired this guy. You've talked highly about this guy, Ballard. Let him do his job. If you're going to keep him around, don't just have him be a lame duck, right? Don't just have him sit there because Ballard won't sit there. I know that Ballard wouldn't do that. If he was, taking his, basically overstepped again, who knows, man, if he would stay in Indianapolis. So that was kind of a longer ramble, but that's kind of the sense I get is people are now okay, We can breathe a little bit. Jim Irsay is not as power hungry as we might have feared. Like he's actually gonna, maybe hopefully settle back into the kind of the role he's been previous to this. So yeah, I kind of get the sense that like the fandom, obviously it's early. We've talked about that, but I get the sense that the fandom is willing to be patient, knowing that rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, like it's going to probably take a couple of years to get back into hopefully contention, right? And I think fans are just honestly relieved in the fact that like, oh gosh, not another retread finally, there's finally some hope for the future. And I think fans, and we certainly feel that way too. It's like, you mean finally going to have a quarterback that lasts beyond a year? Like, sign me up for that, man. So I think a lot of fans are optimistic about the future. Now, obviously, when the Colts select their quarterback, there's going to be people that disagree with it. No matter who the quarterback is, there's going to be questions. There's going to be people who hate the move, think it's the worst thing ever. The Colts are screwed for the next 5 to 10 years. That's inevitable. But it definitely feels like, for the most part, the fans are like, okay, we have a coach that we like who has developed some quarterbacks. And we've seen, unfortunately, how important the quarterback position is. And we've seen it on the flip side. We were blessed for so many years with great quarterback play. And now we haven't had that for the last 5 years. So, yeah, I think the fans are re-energized a little bit. I mean, Derek, it was a draining process, really from the start, from when Frank Reich got hired to really you can point back earlier to week 1, right? Like it was just draining, but it really started to take like full effect whenever Frank Reich got fired, Jim Irsay oversteps, Jeff Saturday gets hired, and then the Colts proceed to win one game and then just embarrass themselves every other week. So, and then the coaching search drags on even further. So it's like Colts fans, we all need to take a vacation. I think we all feel it. Like let's all go down south, man, and take a couple weeks off here. But yeah, that's kind of the sense I get. Am I on point there? I know I rambled a lot, so sorry. I kind of lost my train of thought a few times, kind of went down a few rabbit holes, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
It's all good, man. This is kind of one of those rambling episodes where, you're just kind of trying to think of everything going on. I mean, the thing is everyone thought there was dysfunction within the organization just simply due to the fact that Irsay just did something that he had never done before and something we just haven't seen from Indianapolis in a long time. And, because things were unraveling so fast, it just didn't seem like something that was very Indianapolis-esque, and that's why it felt so much different than where we have been before. Obviously, you think back to them firing him and bringing in Jeff Saturday. And then, of course, that doesn't work out. And then throughout this entire coaching process, we've had to hear the national media saying that they truly believe that Jeff Saturday is going to be remaining the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Then, it just felt like a long process because the majority of fans did not want this. And everyone's like, oh, the only reason why it's happening is because Jim Irsay's got all the control, all the power, and he's the only one that's really matters here in this equation. I think that it's just been a long roller coaster to where fans are so angry about how the season ended. It's still continuing throughout the long process of feeling like we're just stuck in rock bottom. I'll just say this. If you're the Colts with Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay, clearly you're not going to get back on everyone's great side right off the bat. But the best way to start gaining some people's trust back, and I know that they've started to gain a little bit of our trust back and a bunch of other content creators and quite a bit of the fan base too with this hire. That's the thing. You just had to go out and get this decision right. You had to go and get the guy. Right. And I'll sit here and I'll say that I honestly think that in the long term, I think the Colts ended up getting the best head coach hiring done right now. Honestly, I think about it long term. I don't think Frank Reich's going to do better than Shane Steichen in the long term. I don't think Sean Payton's going to do as well in Denver in the long term. And I know John Gannon ain't doing it with the Cardinals. And, I love D'Amico Ryans, but I don't necessarily think that he's going to catapult them to the top of the division for many years. I just think that this was the best thing to do if you are Chris Ballard or Jim Irsay to try to gain some people's trust back. You had to get this move correct. And against the notions of Colts Nation, they took their time with this move, and it ended up working out for them in the long term. And I think it really is going to be a great thing for the Indianapolis Colts getting this hire. Now, the ultimate question is, do they continue to get better from here? Do they keep being the conservative, guys who just don't take that big step? Or are they going to change some things up, make this team a little better? Because the funny thing is, Cody, I talk to people and they keep telling me, like all these Colts fans, they keep saying, I still don't trust Ballard. I still don't trust Ballard. I don't believe he's going to change. And, I keep telling people, like, listen, before, I don't feel like he had to change. I mean, because Jim Irsay let him get away with too much for too long. And now, I mean, what you saw from this last year, the team clearly was not up to par as it should have been. I mean, listen, the crazy part is this team was in the playoffs in 2022, near the playoffs in 2021, then was a bottom 5 team in the entire NFL the next year with the same coach, relatively the same staff, and improvements on defense. So why is it that the team completely fell apart? Well, obviously the coaching had quite a bit to do with it, but a lot of it also had to do with the fact that you failed to address the offensive side of the football a lot of ways. And that's where Chris Ballard effed up. And that's why he's going to have to do it better this time around. So I don't think he can afford to be conservative here, Cody. I think if you're going to win the fan base back, you're going to try to be more aggressive going forward. You're going to try to make a few more moves. And if you're going to go down, you're going to go down saying that you tried to make changes.
Yeah, and I think sometimes what Ballard has done, and it's weird because it kind of betrays his core philosophy of building on the offensive and defensive lines, right? Is like he's put blind faith in some young guys, right? You think about that. Like you allowed, Danico Autry and Justin Houston to go a couple years ago, and, they're still contributing at a decent level. Like they're still good players, and your defensive line's really not better, right, from where it was at all. It might have, I even say it dropped off from where it was. And then last year with the offensive line, right? I mean, you're telling me you couldn't re-sign one of, the two guys, Chris Reed or Mark Glowinski, and you put your blind faith in Danny Pinter, who got benched a couple weeks into the season. Like just those kind of things where it's like, I understand trusting your staff to develop some guys. At the end of the day, man, you need some of those vet guys in there. You can't just do that sometimes, right? I mean, Danny Pinter played well at center, but never had any experience at guard. So what makes you think he's just going to come in and be a great guard right away? It's two completely different positions, right? Now, if we're talking about center, I can see a little bit more of that. But some of those things, some of those questionable decisions where you're like, for as much as you preach about the offensive, defensive line, you've certainly let some really good players get away from you for not that much money. Not that much extra, I guess, from what it would have taken to bring them back. So, I'm talking more about Autry in that situation, but like Chris Reed didn't cost you hardly anything. Glowinski maybe was a little bit more, but yeah, I mean, you just abandoned some of those things. And so, one thing I talked about, when you talked about like the trust thing, I think there's going to be definitely some people who it's going to take a long time for them to ever even think about being back in the pro Ballard camp because think about what the Colts were selling fans, Derek, back at the start of 2021. All right, we got Jonathan Taylor, who just had a great second half of his rookie season. We got Michael Pittman, who had a really good, second half of his season. Oh gosh, okay, we bring in now a new starting quarterback who's dynamic, right? Who's going to make plays with his legs, who's going to give us a vertical passing game. We have a defense that we really like, and all these sorts of things. And for a large majority, the team was successful, Derek. The team was successful. And you were 2 games out of one game out of the playoff with 2 games left. And you blew it. And then it translated to this season. It looked like that was the team after that. After that Jacksonville game, that was the Colts team from then on. And nothing changed. It was just really weird and kind of bizarre how that happened. And so Colts fans were thinking and fed a lot of times, Super Bowl, right? Super Bowl. That's what it's going to be. And if not, certainly AFC South. Absolutely. And you go from not just not winning the Super Bowl or the AFC South to being a top 4 team in draft order. That is a drastic change from what you were trying to sell a couple years ago. It's just bizarre. It's just absolutely bizarre. And, one of the things you talked about, like with this team and just I think for me, the biggest thing is like, is this team still soft? Is it still soft this next year? Because let's be honest, Derek, this team's been soft for too many years under Frank Reich. And Chris Ballard has a part in that too. The Colts had not won an opening game in that whole tenure. Frank Reich won 0 opening games in his years as the Indianapolis Colts head coach. That's crazy. Never won a division title. It's like there's so much the Colts said they were going to do, but failed to deliver on. So I understand why some fans, even now, they don't trust Irsay and they certainly don't trust Ballard. I understand.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on Ballard and Irsay. How do you guys feel about these two going into the offseason and after this hire of Shane Steichen as the head coach? Let us know your thoughts. Thank you guys again so much for all the support. And as always, guys, go Colts.